G'day, HM here. BPD and awareness. How much does it really help a borderline? Or might it help the person who's got BPD who's in your life or was in your life? No matter the relationship type. But does it help to save relationships? Does awareness make people with BPD somehow be able to communicate better, be more aware of other people's feelings, take personal responsibility? Well, no. And this is a real conundrum for people with BPD and for people who suspect someone that they love or care about has BPD. And especially if you're dating someone or whatever, and you're just thinking, wow, I'm seeing all these patterns. So what really can you do to make the relationship work? And the answer is really there isn't anything you can do to make the relationship work, because the major reason why these relationships with people with borderline personality don't work is because they can't do it. They have arrested emotional development. They don't have a sense of self or a container of self. They don't have object permanence or any object constancy. They have the push-pull of the approach avoidance conflict. They have all of this going on, yes, generally out of their own adverse childhood experience and woundedness, but it also so wounds other people, as I know I don't have to tell a lot of people that watch my videos here and there or whatever. Why am I talking about this right now? Because, not only, but because somebody, out there who says they've been in remission from BPD for 7 years, I don't know what that means, but okay, that they're a BPD survivor, okay, but then they also are a BPD coach for people with BPD, okay, but here's the thing, they talk about it as if, like, they can help people with BPD kind of like change everything and heal, or, oh no, what do they say? Right, beat it, beat BPD. They can help them do this in 2 days, apparently. Huh? Say friggin' what? This is why you have to be so careful and so delineating of who you listen to and what they're talking about if they're talking about BPD. So I'm not saying anything about that individual, other than that, if they say they've been in BPD remission for 7 years, I don't know what that means, okay? Why wouldn't they claim to be healed and recovered then? There's a question. So, this is a person talking about BPD awareness and that it's the be-all and end-all to recovery. Well, it's really friggin' important for people with BPD. But even if they get awareness, or they have intellectual awareness, and they can talk to you about things like they'll tell you so much in the beginning, but maybe you didn't know what they were talking about then. So people with BPD can have intellectual awareness. They can have awareness about maybe something they've learned about what they've done or how they hurt somebody or something like that. But guess what? They still can't take personal responsibility or accountability. They still have communication issues, relational challenges, disorganized attachment. It's not fearful avoidant attachment. It's disorganized attachment because they can't really attach if they're untreated. Or if you just suspect they have BPD, they have patterns and they haven't been treated. So BPD awareness, how much is this going to help? Well, the answer is it's really helpful as as a person with BPD who's going to treatment. Going, and not DBT therapy only either, going to like transference-focused psychotherapy, really working hard in a true what is a healing and recovery process for people with BPD. So bringing awareness and accruing awareness in what can happen for people with BPD in treatment that will be long-term, that will go really deep, that will feel often annihilating to continue to persevere with. Then people can with BPD, can take their awareness, intellectual or whatever bit of awareness they have, or even a lot of awareness about what BPD is and what they've heard online, what they might have read in books. So a lot of awareness that isn't really that much awareness of necessarily themselves or what they do. And even a person with BPD has a lot of awareness right now. What happens when they get triggered? What happens when they get triggered to dysregulated emotion and etc.? And like they're not aware at all then, are they? So what does BPD awareness really mean? Like I said, it could really help in therapy because in therapy, people with BPD, if they stick with it in transference focused psychotherapy, for instance, is better than DBT actually. And so if they can stick with that, then they're going to gain awareness if they're not fighting the process or avoiding the process. And when you gain awareness in that process for people with BPD, it's the same people healing with codependency. The more awareness you gain, it's harder for people with BPD. Then you're going to gain more awareness in the therapy, and then you're going to talk about that and keep leveling it down, into the deeper understanding, and then into the emotional landscape. So I don't want anybody out there to think that what somebody says, they work with people with BPD, they've been in remission for 7 years. That's good. I've been healed and recovered for 40, just saying. But I would never claim to be able to help somebody with BPD, even if they're really, really aware, whatever that might mean, in 2 days. Like, really? And the most important part of this message is that the awareness that people with BPD can have, and maybe sometimes even that awareness is sort of like insight. But if they don't go to therapy, and if they don't go deeper, and if they don't find, build, and create a container of self to find again the lost self from arrested emotional development, all the awareness in the world, intellectual or whatever, isn't going to change the fundamentals of what BPD really is for each and every person with it to, manifest it somewhat differently individually. But the core of BPD, approach avoidance conflict, disorganized attachment, communication issues. Everything goes inside to self, that lack of self, before out to other. People with BPD are in a position due to fragmentation and due to just the horrible what BPD really is inside and what it really means. It just precludes people from being themselves because they don't know themselves. And they're still, with that arrested emotional development, they're still back at a very young age. They can be intellectually into here and now, really smart, really creative, really intelligent, but that doesn't help people heal or change BPD either. BPD is very, very extremely formidable to the point where these people need treatment and therapy, and they're not going to spontaneously just remit. No, they don't. They're not going to just spontaneously be all better. No. And every single time, even people in therapy with BPD gaining awareness, building on that, working toward knowing who they are, can still, in a relationship, the second they're triggered, it all just happens. They have these really super strong defenses, and splitting is the key major one. And with these defenses, it's the false self rising. It's not even who is the person with BPD. You had a client say to me recently, well, which one is the real her? When she was like nice to me and I thought we were going to have a relationship, or when she like discarded me and I didn't hear from her for 2 years or 2.5 years, and then she came back with a Hoover, and a cyclical nightmare where somebody is more in waiting mode and limerence and obsession about somebody with BPD than they've even spent much time with them. And they asked me, well, which side is the real her? Is it the side that discarded me and is cold and mean and never thinks about anybody but themselves? Or was it the other side that I saw when it was good for a little bit? What do you think? But I'll tell you what I know. Neither side is real. Neither side is who they actually really are, because they really lack a self. This is what a lot of people, especially in dating relationships, or even, you've been with a person for a while, or in a marriage and or with kids, people don't want to hear this, but you need to hear this. BPD needs years of treatment for people to actually be able to get to healed and recover, to really lay down all that maladaptive coping, protecting their cognitive distortions, and the repetition compulsions that they enact just unconsciously, knee-jerk. And people wonder, how come he or she never saw that I was hurting so much when he or she did this or did that or said or did this? Because They just that horrible thing about the idealization phase, they're really not seeing you. They're getting delighted and excited about, well, if they some get excited, some can't even muster that. But in the idealization phase, people with BPD aren't aware what's going to happen there. And even if they've been through it a whole lot of times, maybe still not aware, maybe they do know that it's unlikely that it's going to work out. But even in the beginning, nobody understands this in the beginning. You have to look back and you have to be kind to yourself. Why? Because when you met this person with BPD, you probably didn't know, you probably never heard of it before. So most people tell me, unless they've had girlfriends or boyfriends prior who've been BPD or a narcissist or comorbidity both. Idealization. I mean, I've been doing this work with clients for 35 years. I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, by the way, if I could just say that right. But the thing is, it doesn't matter how amazing they made you feel or that you ended up feeling around them in the beginning, because once that major, there can be rupture episodes and splitted evaluations, and then the major one comes along, changes everything, or the accruing of so many of these ruptures. And when they split you to the valuation, and then you try to make it better and you try to make it better, and they can't help because they don't know what's going on. They don't take accountability, responsibility for what they don't understand how they're affecting you. So in idealization, they're codependent too, and they're on their best behavior. They're trying to put their best foot forward, but usually there's lots of red flags. Like they're telling you everything that happened in their childhood, how they don't get along with anybody, or just whatever all the problems are in their life, negative. Every ex has always done this to them. Those are big red flags for run, but people don't know that in the beginning. Then in the beginning, you're feeling so seen and so heard, but you're not really so seen and so heard. And so how you're feeling right from the get-go, unbeknownst to most people in the beginning, it's starting off from a fantasy bond place. But again, back to this awareness. So you don't have awareness in the beginning often. You didn't know what BPD was. You know that now. Maybe you have misunderstanding, misinformation, and you know a lot about it now. Maybe you're still, people are coming new to this every day, unfortunately. You can't, no matter how many times you talk for hours and hours to the person with BPD, if they'll even hang in a conversation, or, the jade conversation that ensues to justify, argue, defend, and explain, that you'll be doing, well, they'll be sitting there going, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do that. What do you mean? You need too much. You're this, you're that, you're the other thing. Just turning it all on you and their projection out toward you. But you can talk to them for literally hours every day. And what you're trying to make them aware of is not going to penetrate. And they're not going to understand it. And even if they can somewhat have intellectual awareness, they might go, and they might put the odd dot together, but trigger and poof again. Whether they're petulant, acting out borderlines, their age, etc., or the quiet, discouraged borderline, or something in the middle there. Point is, the awareness can be really intellectual. That doesn't help. The awareness in general goes away the second they're triggered. And make no mistake about it, by the way, when somebody with BPD is triggered, it's not your fault. They have these triggers inside of them already. They don't even often know that or take responsibility for that. So the key thing I'm really just trying to say here is BPD awareness, because I've had so many clients tell me, like, their person with BPD is so aware, so intelligent. Many people are dating or have been in relationships with or been married to people with BPD that are therapists. So they understand all about this, about psychology or whatever, right? Okay, good. It doesn't help them change, because healing and recovery from BPD, you can't make them do it. You can't make them want to do it. Can't hang around, well, maybe they'll try to do it, because you have to think about you. And B, it doesn't matter how much awareness, insight, or intelligence they have in terms of anything to do with themselves or BPD, it's not a do-it-yourself proposition to heal borderline personality disorder. And nobody's going to get to a much better, if anything at all, changing in 2 days. No matter who is out there thinking that they can explain it all. Because I saw this person's long explanation about BPD and awareness. And yes, there's no doubt that in a therapeutic process, the awareness that can grow in a person with BPD, which is usually pretty scary, pretty defended against for quite a while, etc., can mean the difference between sticking with the therapy and healing and recovering or not. So awareness is huge, but we should not give it the huge weight that somebody out there is giving it, with the idea that just because they're aware, they can change things and change things in a lasting way so they can be congruent and consistent, because they still don't have a self and they still don't know how they affect others. And even when they can intellectually go, oh yeah, I hear you, okay, well, and maybe have somewhat of a conversation about that, they don't understand it emotionally. It doesn't go deep enough. So are you somebody still clinging, hanging on because you got a really aware person with BPD in your life, or that you want a relationship recycle with, or who ghosted you recently or discarded you, and you don't know if you're going to hear from them? Do you really think that just because they might have some intellectual awareness or a lot of it, that that's going to help them make change to save your relationship? Because it's not. And that's a big part of the fantasy, in the fantasy/betrayal bond of these relationships. BPD awareness will not on its own change, fix anything about BPD, help them heal it, or mean that they can relate differently, and it won't save your relationship. And once you've been so hurt, ghosted, discarded, raged at, given the silent treatment, seen rupture after rupture of their triggered emotional dysregulation and splitting you to devaluation, calling you all the things they do, calling you names, calling you a narcissist, whatever else. Why do you want to go back around that circle again? Because I promise you, if you want to recycle with your ex, no matter how bad you're hurting today because you can't live without them, but you can't live with them, you're just going to set yourself up to go around the cycle faster and faster, every relationship cycle. And if you're believing in any iteration of any relationship, whether that borderline is your parent or someone you're dating or as an ex or a friend, or you're the favorite person or a family member, awareness and the fact that most people with BP are quite intelligent, that's not the road to healing. That's not the road to recovery. That's not the road to healthier relating. And if you're hanging your hat on that, then that's codependent fantasy. BPD awareness on its own doesn't mean squat for change or healthy relating. People with BPD cannot fix it themselves. They don't age out. They don't just instantaneously remit. They need full-on treatment, and in a modality like transference-focused psychotherapy, way more than DBT, which DBT is a great symptom management kind of thing, but the people with BPD and DBT therapy will never actually build a container of self and find that lost self and go through what all that healing and recovery really means, because it's the only way to heal and recover from BPD. And what do people mean by remission? I don't know. I still have something coming on that. Remember, I'm out here to work with you. If you resonate with me, and please do check out the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup.com for this video feed from this channel is there. The podcast feed is there, because again, I'm here doing a video, but I'm going to be doing a lot more on the podcast. And I'll have more information coming soon about a new podcast that I want to start, maybe even 2 of them. But also, I'm going to be doing much more on the Codependency podcast. And podcast episodes are not going to come up to this channel very much anymore, if at all. So if you really want to know what I'm talking about in podcasts, which go deeper, and yeah, sometimes they're longer, but I'm not going to make them longer. But the point is, you need to really go and follow, subscribe to, or whatever you can do there at survivingbpdrelationshipbreakup.com. And like I said, the whole video feed is there from this channel and the podcast feed. Some of the episodes are the same, but they're going to start to be very divergent, because there'll be less here. I'm still going to be doing some videos here, but there'll be less here and more on the podcast, more coming on the Codependency Surviving Cluster B relationships podcast, and like I said, a couple new things coming. So BPD awareness, they can wow you with awareness, but it's still fantasy if you think that that's going to change or save or fix a relationship. It doesn't work that way.